December 7th, 1941, 7:48 a.m., Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. In exactly 12 minutes, 353 Japanese aircraft will appear over this harbor. In the next 90 minutes, they will kill 2,103 Americans, sink 4 battleships, destroy 188 aircraft. But what if one plane was different? What if sitting on that runway was an F-22 Raptor? This is not science fiction. This is a tactical analysis. Using real specifications, real physics, and real historical data, we're going to answer the most fascinating question in World War II alternate history. Could one modern fighter jet have stopped the entire Pearl Harbor attack? The answer will shock you. But first, we need to understand what actually happened that morning, and why the technology gap would be absolutely devastating. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the United States Pacific Fleet sat anchored in Pearl Harbor, completely unaware of what was coming. At 6 o'clock a.m., 230 miles north of Oahu, 6 Japanese aircraft carriers launched the first wave of their attack force. 183 aircraft in the first wave, 170 aircraft in the second wave. Total, 353 fighters, bombers, and torpedo planes. The Japanese had been planning this for months. They knew exactly where every American ship was anchored. They knew the Americans had no aircraft on combat air patrol. They knew Sunday morning meant minimal readiness. At 7:48 a.m., Commander Mitsuo Fuchida transmitted the code, Tora, Tora, Tora. Tiger, Tiger, Tiger. The attack had begun. What did America have to defend Pearl Harbor? At Wheeler Field, Hickam Field, and other bases around Oahu, there were approximately 390 American military aircraft. But here's the critical problem. They were all parked, wingtip to wingtip, on the ground, perfectly lined up. Why? Because the military was more worried about sabotage than air attack, so they grouped all planes together, making them easy targets. Only a handful of American pilots managed to get airborne during the attack. Second Lieutenants George Welch and Kenneth Taylor famously scrambled from Haliwa Field. They shot down 6-7 Japanese aircraft combined. But they were flying P-40 Warhawks, 1940s technology against 1940s technology. It was a fair fight, and America lost badly that day. But what if the fight wasn't fair at all? Meet the F-22 Raptor, the most advanced air superiority fighter ever built. First flight, 1997. Full combat capability, 2005. Cost, $150 million per aircraft. But imagine, somehow, through a twist of fate, through a time portal, through whatever mechanism you want, one F-22 Raptor sits on the runway at Wheeler Field on the morning of December 7th, 1941. It has a full weapons loadout, full fuel, one pilot who knows exactly what's about to happen. At 7:45 a.m., 3 minutes before the attack begins, the pilot receives the warning. Inbound aircraft, 180 miles north, bearing 1 ton, large formation. The F-22 pilot starts the engines, and everything changes. Let's talk about the technology gap, and it's not even close. Speed. Japanese Zero fighter, maximum speed 331 mph. American P-40 Warhawk, maximum speed 320 mph. F-22 Raptor, maximum speed 1,500 mph, Mach 2.25. The F-22 is flying 4 times faster than anything in the sky that day. But speed isn't everything. Let's talk about maneuverability. Thrust vectoring. The F-22 has something called thrust vectoring. Its engine nozzles can move, allowing the aircraft to perform maneuvers that defy physics. At least, 1941 physics. It can change direction in ways that would make a Zero pilot think he's hallucinating. Turn radius at combat speed. F-22 can pull 9 Gs. A Zero pilot would black out at 7 Gs. In a dogfight, there is no contest. The F-22 could fly circles, literally circles, around any 1941 aircraft. Now the weapons. This is where it gets absolutely devastating. AIM-120 AMRAAM, beyond visual range missiles. The F-22 carries 6 AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles internally. Range, 100 miles. Speed, Mach 4. Guidance, active radar homing. Translation, the F-22 pilot can shoot down a Japanese bomber from 100 miles away. The Japanese pilot would never even see what killed him. In 1941, air combat meant getting within a few hundred feet and firing machine guns. The F-22 can kill you from the next county. AIM-9X Sidewinder, close-range missiles. For close-range work, the F-22 carries 2 AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles. These are heat-seeking missiles. Lock on to the engine heat. Fire. The missile does the rest. Range, 22 miles. Kill. Probability 90% plus. A Zero pilot wouldn't even know what a missile is. He'd see a streak of smoke, then nothing. M61 Vulcan cannon. And if somehow a Japanese aircraft gets close, which it won't, the F-22 has a 20mm M61 Vulcan rotary cannon. Rate of fire, 6,000 rounds per minute. 480 rounds loaded. A Zero has thin aluminum skin. 1 second burst from the Vulcan would literally shred it into pieces. For comparison, a Zero's machine guns fire maybe 900 rounds per minute, combined. The F-22's gun fires 6,000 rounds per minute. It's not a fair fight, it's target practice. But here's what makes the F-22 truly unstoppable in 1941. The radar, APG-77, AESA radar. The F-22's APG-77 radar can track 100 targets simultaneously at ranges over 125 miles. Think about that. The pilot can see every single Japanese aircraft before they even reach Oahu. The Japanese have no radar. The Americans in 1941 have primitive radar that barely works. The F-22 pilot has a God's eye view of the entire battlefield. He knows exactly where every enemy aircraft is, what altitude they're flying, what speed they're traveling, which direction they're heading. And the Japanese pilots. They have eyeballs. That's it. Tactical data. Link. Normally, the F-22 would share all this radar data with other friendly aircraft through secure data links. But in 1941, there are no other F-22s, so our pilot has to fight alone. But with this situational awareness advantage, one pilot is enough. Now, before we run the simulation, we need to acknowledge the limitations. Ammunition. The F-22 has 6 AMRAAMs, 2 Sidewinders, and 480 cannon rounds. That's enough to shoot down maybe 8 to 10 aircraft with missiles, and dozens more with the gun. But the Japanese are bringing 353 aircraft. Our F-22 pilot cannot shoot down all of them. It's mathematically impossible. Fuel. The F-22 has about 2 hours of combat flight time with full afterburner usage. The Japanese attack lasted 90 minutes in real history. So we have enough fuel? Barely. No resupply. In 1941, there are no F-22 maintenance crews, no spare parts, no missile reloads. This is a one-shot deal. Once the ammo's gone, it's gone. The strategy: So our pilot can't win by shooting down every Japanese aircraft. Instead, he has to use psychology, terror, and strategic targeting. He has to make the Japanese think they're fighting something supernatural. He has to break their will to fight. And here's how he does it. 7:40 a.m., 8 minutes before the historical attack begins. The F-22 Raptor launches from Wheeler Field. Takeoff roll, 400 feet. The pilot pushes the throttle to full military power. Time to 40,000 feet, 3 minutes. Within 3 minutes, our F-22 pilot is cruising at 40,000 feet, 150 miles north of Oahu, positioned directly in the path of the incoming Japanese formation. His radar lights up like a Christmas tree. 183 targets. First wave, altitude 10,000 feet, speed 150 mph, distance 80 miles. They're flying in neat formations, bombers in the center, fighters on the outside. Perfect targets. The Japanese pilots have no idea he's there. Their crude optical sights can't see him. They have no radar warning systems. They're completely blind. Our pilot selects the first target, the lead bomber. At 7:43 a.m., he fires the first AM-120 AMRAAM. The missile leaves the F-22 at Mach 4, speed 3,000 plumb. The Japanese bomber is flying at 150 mph. Time to impact, 40 seconds. Commander Fuchida, leading the attack, sees a white streak appear from nowhere. The lead bomber explodes, just explodes, mid-air, no warning. Fuchida's radio erupts with panicked voices. What happened? Where did that come from? I don't see any enemy aircraft. Another white streak. Another bomber explodes. Then another. Then another. In 4 minutes, our F-22 pilot fires all 6 AMRAAM missiles. 6 Japanese bombers, each carrying a 1,760-pound bomb meant for USS Arizona or USS Oklahoma, fall into the ocean. 48 Japanese aircrew dead before they even see their target. But more importantly, psychological impact. The Japanese formation is breaking up. Pilots are panicking. Some are turning back. Commander Fuchida is screaming into his radio to hold formation. But fear is contagious, and our F-22 pilot hasn't even entered visual range yet. At 7:50 a.m., the F-22 pilot pushes the throttle forward and dives into the Japanese formation at 900 mph. The Japanese pilots see something impossible. A plane moving so fast, it's just a blur. He locks a Sidewinder onto a Mitsubishi Zero, fires. The heat-seeking missile tracks the Zero's engine perfectly. The Zero explodes. 3 seconds later, another Sidewinder, another Zero, gone. Both missiles fired. Both hit. Now, the F-22 pilot switches to guns. He pulls up behind a Kate torpedo bomber. The Japanese rear gunner is frantically firing his 7.7mm machine gun. Bullets that would bounce off the F-22's titanium skin, even if they hit. The F-22 pilot squeezes the trigger. The M61 Vulcan roars. 6,000 rounds per minute. The Kate torpedo bomber disintegrates, literally torn apart by the cannon fire. The pilot pulls up, rolls inverted, spots another bomber. Trigger squeeze, another burst, another kill. In 90 seconds, the F-22 pilot guns down 7 more Japanese aircraft. Total, 15 kills, 15 aircraft down. But there are still 168 Japanese aircraft in the first wave. And this is where strategy becomes more important than firepower. The F-22 pilot doesn't need to shoot down all 168 remaining aircraft. He just needs to break their morale. And it's working. Japanese radio intercepts show complete chaos. We're being attacked by some kind of rocket plane. It's moving faster than sound. My bullets pass through it. It's a ghost. We must abort. Abort! Commander Fuchida is trying to restore order, but roughly 40 aircraft from the first wave have already turned back. They're terrified. They've never seen anything like this. But Fuchida is a professional, a veteran. He rallies the remaining aircraft and continues toward Pearl Harbor. About 128 aircraft from the first wave continue the attack. Our F-22 pilot has reduced the first wave by 31%. But now comes the critical decision. Does he chase the aircraft continuing to Pearl Harbor, or does he intercept the second wave? He chooses the second wave, because the second wave has 170 more aircraft, and he still has 450 rounds of cannon ammunition left. At 8:15 a.m., the F-22 pilot climbs back to 35,000 feet and heads north. His radar picks up the second wave, 170 aircraft, approaching 100 miles out. This time, he has no missiles, only the gun. But he has surprise. The second wave doesn't know what happened to the first wave yet. He dives into their formation at supersonic speed. The sonic boom alone rattles aircraft. Windows crack. Pilots duck instinctively. Then the Vulcan cannon opens fire. Diving attack runs. Each run lasting 3 to 5 seconds, each burst taking down 1 to 2 aircraft. He makes 12 gun runs over 20 minutes. 23 more aircraft destroyed. Ammunition counter, 20 rounds remaining. The second wave has lost 13% of its strength before even reaching Oahu. And, unlike the first wave, the second wave has completely fallen apart. Estimates suggest that only 90 to 100 aircraft from the second wave continued to Pearl Harbor. More than 70 aircraft turned back. Total Japanese aircraft destroyed by F-22, 38. Total Japanese aircraft turned back, 110 plus. Total Japanese aircraft that reached Pearl Harbor, 205 instead of 353. The attack isn't stopped, but it's severely weakened. And now, let's see what that means for Pearl Harbor itself. Let's compare the real attack to our alternate timeline. Historical Pearl Harbor. 2,403 Americans killed. 1,178 wounded. 4 battleships sunk. Arizona, Oklahoma, West Virginia, California. And 4 battleships damaged. 3 cruisers damaged. 3 destroyers damaged. 188 aircraft destroyed. 159 aircraft damaged. Alternate timeline with F-22. With only 58% of the Japanese attack force reaching Pearl Harbor, and those that did arrive being disorganized and demoralized. Estimated casualties, 800 till 1,000 Americans killed. Still tragic, still a disaster, but 1,400, 1,600 lives saved. Ships. USS Arizona still explodes, a lucky bomb hit. USS Oklahoma still capsizes, but USS West Virginia and California survive with repairable damage. Aircraft. Only 90 American aircraft destroyed. Many got airborne due to extended warning time. The attack is still devastating, still brings America into WWII. But it's noticeably less successful. But here's where it gets really interesting. The psychological impact on Japan. The Japanese plan relied on a decisive blow. Knock out the US Pacific Fleet. Buy 6-12 months to conquer Southeast Asia before America recovers. In our timeline, they lost 29 aircraft at Pearl Harbor. Acceptable losses. In the F-22 timeline, they lost 38 aircraft to one mysterious plane, and another 110 turned back in panic. More than 40% of the attack force neutralized by a single aircraft that seems to defy physics. Japanese intelligence. Nightmare. Japanese naval intelligence would be getting these reports. A plane that flies faster than sound, shoots invisible rockets from miles away, cannot be hit by our guns. One plane destroyed 38 of ours. What would Japanese commanders think? They'd think, what else does America have that we don't know about? They'd think, if they have one of these planes, how many do they have? They'd think, can we actually win this war? Yamamoto's quote, Admiral Yamamoto famously said after Pearl Harbor, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve." Imagine what he'd say if he knew about the F-22. The attack would still bring America into the war, but Japanese morale would be shattered from day one. Of course, this is all speculation, fun speculation, educational speculation, but it raises a fascinating question about technology and warfare. Technology gap. In real history, the Pacific War was fought between roughly equal technologies. Japanese Zeros versus American Wildcats and Hellcats. Japanese battleships versus American battleships. Both sides had radar, radios, aircraft carriers. The Americans won because of industrial capacity, code breaking, and strategic decisions. But what if the technology gap was 60 years? What if one side had 2000 technology and the other had 1941 technology? It wouldn't be a war. It would be a massacre. Modern parallels. This isn't just alternate history. It's a thought experiment about military technology. Today, the US military has technology that some adversaries can't match. Stealth fighters, precision-guided munitions, satellite intelligence, cyber warfare. The gap between an F-22 and a 1941 Zero is similar to the gap between an F-22 and some countries' current air forces. Technology is a force multiplier, but it's not invincible. One F-22 at Pearl Harbor saves 1,600 lives. But it doesn't stop the attack. It doesn't win the war. It just changes the odds. So, could one F-22 Raptor have defended Pearl Harbor? The answer is yes and no. Yes, it could have shot down dozens of Japanese aircraft. Yes, it could have terrified the Japanese and reduced the attack's effectiveness. Yes, it could have saved hundreds, perhaps thousands of American lives. But no, it could not have stopped the attack entirely. No, it could not have prevented war. No, it could not have single-handedly changed the outcome of World War II. One plane, no matter how advanced, is still just one plane. The real heroes of Pearl Harbor weren't hypothetical time-traveling fighter pilots. They were the sailors who fought back with deck guns against dive bombers. They were George Welch and Kenneth Taylor, who scrambled their P-40s and shot down 6 Japanese aircraft with 1941 technology. They were the medics pulling burned sailors from the water. They were the engineers who refloated the sunken battleships. They didn't have F-22s. They had courage. And that's why America won. This is just the beginning. In this series, we're going to explore more what-if scenarios. What if one modern jet fought 10,000 WW2 planes? What if Hitler captured an F-22? What if a modern destroyer fought at Pearl Harbor? What if D-Day had modern air support? We're going to use real technology, real history, and real tactical analysis to answer these questions. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about understanding why it happened. And sometimes the best way to understand history is to imagine how it could have been different. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. Leave a comment. What alternate history scenario do you want to see next? And here's a question for you to debate in the comments. If you were the F-22 pilot that morning, What would you have done differently? Thanks for watching. Remember, history is written by the victors, but alternate history is written by dreamers. See you in the next one.